What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It is I, your Morphinominal host, Adam Perez, back once again with another Ultraman Trigger review, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to dive into episode number 13 of this season, very well into the halfway mark of this show, as this episode was, in fact, a clip show, if you will. I will say this. This is one of the reasons as to why I didn't tackle this episode earlier than I usually do, because I usually try and drop these episodes at least for you guys over the weekend if possible. But it took me a little bit of time to get to this episode because going into it, I already knew it was a clip show. So there was a part of me that was thinking to myself, well, how much information can they really give us, right? Like, what other insight are they really going to sort of tackle in here? You know, and in my head, at least when it comes to clip shows, since I'm very familiar with Power Rangers, Super Sentai, those are really the kind of concepts and ideas how to tackle a clip show that I'm really not the biggest fan of. I think if anything, maybe Super Sentai handles them a little bit better, definitely, than Power Rangers certainly does. So when it comes to clip shows, usually not the most eventful and usually not an episode I'm truly looking forward to certainly talking about. So I was kind of hesitant coming into this Ultraman Trigger episode this week, but I had a little bit of a good time. I mean, granted, this isn't like super forward pushing in regards to the episode itself, but I did think that we got a little bit of a gold mine of information here, especially when it comes to Ignis, which I wasn't expecting him to certainly have a role in this episode, but I did like what they wind up revealing to us in here. Getting to see Kango maybe even catching up Akito along with Yuzari in regards to what happened. Very cliff notes, if you will, to kind of explain to them. So I'm glad that they at least tackled that here in this episode. But this was really all about Detective Marluru here, as they've got the alien Metron who's on the case in this episode, as they're under the impression, or at least or I should say Marluru's under the impression that the captain not only has been kidnapped, but the guy's been killed. Like, talking about somebody's offed our captain. I mean, really jumping to conclusions. And I do love the fact that this episode literally starts off with Marluru telling people assumptions can be dangerous, right? There's a reason why there's a saying out there that assuming things can certainly make an ass out of you and me, sort of thing. So definitely not the way to go when it comes to assumptions. So even seeing Marluru give us that disclaimer and heads up, it is interesting to see that Marluru at the end of the day was a little bit of assuming things herself and assuming the worst when it came to the captain, unfortunately, and we get to see exactly how that wound up turning out in here. But for me, when it comes to Marluru, she's always been a character that I've been really fascinated with. I love the voice actor played by Mayo Ichimichi. She also played Luca Milfi over on Gokaiger and a couple of other series as well, so you guys are very familiar with her. But I think she fits this role perfectly. I don't know if she's also the suit actor or not, but just the way that Marluru holds herself, very intelligent, but definitely will give you some attitude, will talk back, definitely has quite the personality of her own, which I think Mayo Ichimichi just fits perfectly with a lot of the characters that she certainly tends to tackle. So the fact that this episode as a clip show really gave us a spotlight on Marluru, I thought was pretty fun, honestly, because I've been a really big fan of a lot of the Gut Select team members that we've seen so far, honestly. So the fact that she got some spotlight was pretty cool. Even loved the opportunity to see what her digs look like, right? Like her own room, very casual, if you will, compared to everybody else's. I really just love the attention that they wind up focusing in on her. And even the flashback moment that we wind up getting, because it does seem very much like Marluru, very connected with the captain, has like a debt to pay, very thankful for maybe the position that she's certainly in. I know Akito certainly brings that up also, and we get to see a great flashback, if you will, of Marluru's past, of the first time I would assume that her and the captain wind up meeting. At least I'm assuming that that's when they actually met, and it wasn't like some make-believe scene to make it more dramatic. And the only reason why I say that is because the scene, the shot winds up changing, like the ratio. It definitely goes more like television widescreen or movie widescreen format. So I was thinking to myself, like, are they just just playing this up, like pretending like it's a movie, or is this their actual first encounter with one another as the captain winds up bringing her on board, mostly because of the fact of just how intelligent and brilliant she certainly is. So to kind of see how good Marluru certainly is at her job, but then also really just dropping the ball on this mystery that she's trying to solve, did certainly make me laugh and scratch my head a little bit all at the same time. But I really did enjoy what we wind up getting here, getting to see her sit down with everybody, do some interrogation work, her even putting on her detective hat from time to time. So I love the opportunity to see her question everybody of the Gut Select team, because it did lead to some really great humorous moments in here, and moments to certainly laugh about for sure. Like one of my favorite moments in here is when she gets the opportunity to ask Kamari, the Falcon pilot, why she gets so excited when it's time for her to actually pilot, considering just how sort of reserved we usually tend to see her. The fact that she gives no comment, I was a little bit upset about that. Like, okay, maybe it's a personal reason as to why she gets so incredibly excited for piloting the Falcon. But that is one thing that I think we've even questioned very early on. It's like, I love how she handles herself. She doesn't really say or do too much throughout the seasons or throughout the episodes, with the exception of maybe like adjusting her glasses from time to time. But once she sits into that Falcon seat, it's a completely different story. I absolutely love her as a character when she's in that mode. I also love getting an opportunity to see Kengo continuing to trip over his words, almost like he forgets that he's gonna like blow his cover by accidentally letting people know that he's Ultraman. I'm just thinking to myself, like, Kengo, how many times you got to make this mistake before you actually remember what's going on? And then we also get Akito even referencing the idea that he has more power keys to use from the database, that apparently there have been powers developed from the powers of the monsters that they've encountered in the past. And so that probably it goes to show you why he's got those little power ups and stuff that you can put into not necessarily the spark lens, but I guess it's the spark lens that's because all the Guts members have those guns that they can use to utilize like special abilities and powers, which is an incredible weapon that Akito winds up being able to create. But I did find it fascinating in here that he does mention that there are more powers in the database that he's even sort of yet to use. And if anything, this truly just leads us right into the Ignis character here this week, who again continues to just pop up randomly out of nowhere. Like if you had to ask me, I would probably think that maybe Ignis was living on the Nursedessi somewhere absolutely hidden where nobody could certainly find this man, because he just literally pops up randomly whenever you can. In this episode, he literally just comes out of the vents and starts infiltrating Akito's lab, if you will, coming across a spark lens, which Akito mentions was just a prototype. It was a failure. It was something he tried to create before the one that I'm assuming that Kengo winds up having. But the fact that Ignis himself not only learned about the spark lens prototype, but also the powers and the additional power keys that Akito certainly has available to him. Talk about just bad timing in general, right? Considering what we saw with Ignis in the previous episode, him bringing in that darkness ability, if you will, that trigger dark sort of powers, just kind of lingering. And when you've got somebody like Ignis, who is a treasure hunter, always looking for the most exquisite things out there, Trigger Dark and Darkness powers as exquisite as it gets. So we know that power is embodying him right now, but to give him abilities, powers, and something to maybe channel that sort of power and transformation into with a prototype spark lens, we literally just handed Ignis, like, I feel like Ignis could thus be like the second half villain of this show. Who certainly knows? I don't really know the format of Ultraman Trigger shows, if they have multiple villains or whoever else is certainly going to creep up. But look, Ignis has always had an issue with was it Hoodrum, the other Giants of Darkness, right? Has a little bit of a bone to pick with him for what he did to his planet. So I'm hoping that Ignis certainly uses these abilities to go ahead and face off against them. Now, whether or not he tries to turn the tides on Gut Select or Ultraman Trigger himself with these abilities, who certainly knows? But I do love the idea that despite this being a clip show, they are at least giving us some insight into Ignis and where this could potentially take us for the rest of the season. So as much as Ignis just randomly pops up in here, this time definitely was certainly with a purpose, and I really enjoyed just the revelations and stuff that we wind up getting in here. So we'll see what happens, but I thought the Marluru detective stuff was pretty funny. It definitely made me laugh when she's interrogating what's his name? Let me go ahead and let me go see if I can pull this up again here real quick. Damn it, Tishan, the Gut Select team member of Tishan, as she's interrogating him, and like literally pointing the finger at him, saying that you're the one that killed the captain. Even holds up his blood-stained jacket and things like that. Just seeing him fumble over his words, and then all of a sudden the captain just pops up out of nowhere and tries to explain everything that's going on. And really, how it's Marluru that wind up missing his note or email about the idea that not only was he going to a meeting at HQ, but he has like a new contact information or something like that that she failed to update, and the blood stain was literally ketchup the whole entire time, which does make me wonder like why Tishan just didn't say, oh, I must have spilled my ketchup, and just sort of cleaned it up as he's just sitting there looking. I guess maybe homeboy was literally too busy doing some workouts, right? That he thinks everybody's trying to get him because of the fact that he's like the strongest member of the team, or so he certainly says. Tishan is just a great comedy element for this. Like, he has great facial expressions that just truly work for me and honestly make me laugh. But again, this is another example as to why I enjoy this Gut Select team as much as I certainly do. It really does go a long way for adding to the enjoyment of this season. But overall, nothing too crazy in here with the exception of the Ignis stuff, but I am thrilled that we got to see Detective Marluru. It almost reminds me of like Detective Pikachu to a certain extent, of just how cartoonish this character is. But getting the opportunity to see her really shine was really fun for me in this episode. But listen, these are just simply my A+ opinions. I want to know yours, guys. What did you guys think about this episode? Definitely go ahead and let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below. And if anything, we do have ourselves a brand new episode, I believe next weekend, or this upcoming Friday. So definitely look forward to that, and I'll certainly have a review for you guys then as well. So if you have any comments or thoughts about this episode, feel free to throw them into the comment section box, and we'll continue this discussion until next week's episode. But until then, and in the meantime, do me a big favor, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+.